עדיין לא החליטה בלילה כשמעתי עד שעלה
Shalom, shalom, shalom. Hey, everyone, what's going on? This is Michael Sahno, and welcome to the 12 Cities in Israel podcast. This is episode number 18. We have so much to cover today. There is just so much to talk about today. A lot of fun stuff, a lot of good stuff. There's going to be some interesting ideas are going to come up. We're going to have a little bit of a history lesson. I'm going to refer to a book that I'm reading, which is absolutely amazing. I'm going to give you some updates on what's going on with the interviews that are coming up in February. But before we do that, let me take care of a little bit of housekeeping. First, listen, if this is your first time watching us on the video version of this podcast, please, come on. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button and the notification bell so that you're always in the loop and always know when we have a brand new, fresh episode out. Also, if you want to take us with you on your way to work or to the gym or wherever you want to go, you can find this podcast on SoundCloud, iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, TuneIn, and, of course, Spotify. So that one's a big deal for my wife. She follows me on Spotify. Honestly, for a while she didn't at all follow me, subscribe to our YouTube page. She didn't subscribe to our Instagram, any of it. And now she does. Okay, so along with the housekeeping, I have to give my shout outs. The first of which is to iConnect. iConnect, engagement with Israel that earns you rewards. Earn points and connect with Israel with articles, games, quizzes, polls, and more. So what exactly is iConnect? Well, iConnect is a social gaming platform where you can play, earn points, and receive cool prizes all for free. Now, why should you play? Because iConnect introduces you to a unique way to acquaint yourself with all things Israel while working towards winning once-in-a-lifetime experiences. So head on over to www.iconnect.co.il. That's www.iconnect.co.il and start playing now. Our next one is from IsraelPhones, who is the leading provider of communication devices for people traveling to Israel. IsraelPhones offer SIM cards, MiFi devices, which are mobile Wi-Fi hotspots, travel products and services, the connectivity needs of tour groups, synagogues, schools, community missions, study programs, and individuals, supplying you with international prepaid SIM cards, cell phones, and USB portable modem hotspot rentals. Now, because you are watching this show, IsraelPhones will give you a free SIM card, which is a $15 value if you spend $30 or more on their site. Thank you, IsraelPhones. All you have to do to get this deal is to use the coupon code 12 Cities in Israel. That's the number 12 Cities in Israel, all one word, no spaces, when checking out on your next order. For more information on what IsraelPhones can do for you and to get this great deal, which it is a great deal, so use it, please visit www.israelphones.com. Go to www.israelphones.com. Okay. What are we talking about? We are talking about it's gonna seem controversial. It is not controversial. But in this era of everyone gets a trophy, a participation award, it's going to seem a little harsh. So right now, what I'm doing is wait a minute. Okay, so we're talking about the self-worth of the individual, okay? Primarily in this discussion, we'll be talking about the self-worth of Jews. Is there worth in the Jewish population as a whole, or is that restrained, constrained? limited to only those that produce. So, the reason I'm bringing this up is because in the book, The Jewish State by Theodor Herzl, he addresses this question. Now, before we get into that, I'm going to have a sip of coffee. Peter, this is for you. Jacobs, yay. That's the obligatory slurp. Again, and I say this every time, my grandmother is rolling. So we're talking about self-worth. We're talking about Jewish self-worth, which also goes into the discussion about individual self-worth. And is the individual inherently imbued with worth? Meaning, just because you popped out and wound up on this planet, do you automatically have worth? Now, worth can be defined in a number of different ways. Yes, I would argue that yes, across the board, the answer would absolutely be yes, because you can always find someone who loves someone. We can even go to the extreme. Stalin had children, and his son loved him. I know his daughter, they had a troubled history, but I mean, you can go to the mass super duper extreme of the worst person in history, or one of the worst people in history, and you can find someone who can ascribe worth to them. So yes. But in terms of larger projects, in terms of Herzl's concept of the individual having something that they could give towards a state, and I don't mean monetarily, I don't mean at all times physically. So it's interesting because there's a big thing going on right now in politics with shutting out the shutting out the ultra-Orthodox parties, Shas, and United Torah Judaism. That's right. Shutting them out of the political process in the elections that just occurred. And what's interesting about that, what's fabulously interesting about that, on an intellectual level, is the fact that Ben-Gurion saw benefit in the Orthodox and saw them as the retainers of culture, I guess would be a good way to describe it. Because, I mean, that would be how he would have seen it, I imagine. And I say that because he was a socialist. Ben-Gurion was a socialist through and through. There are a lot of things that I've read in his biography about him moving around the socialist groups in Eastern Europe, and that is what prompted him to move to what was then Palestine. And it's interesting because in past episodes I have said Palestine wasn't used as a name until the Mandate, and I was wrong. I was totally wrong. And as I said before, I am happy to be wrong. I am happy to be corrected. I love it because it makes my coffers of knowledge that much greater. So in The Jewish State, Theodor Herzl refers to the other place. And every time that he refers to that, he's talking about what would become Israel. But when he refers to it by name, he refers to it as Palestine. So fascinating. I'm interested to find out. I'm going to do a little more research, find out where, and this isn't to find out about, and the reason I'm a little hesitant right now is because there is this argument that continually surfaces about, Palestinians, and there was no Palestine, and blah, 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 blah. But the name Palestine goes all the way back to Roman times, and that I am absolutely sure. I'm just saying I don't know is that something that goes all the way back to the Crusades? Is that something that goes all the way back to 70, or when the Roman 70 destruction of the Second Temple, when they tried to purge the Jewishness of the kingdom of it? No, the kingdom of Judea. That's weird. Okay, so and the reason that's weird is because you have a couple of different things happening. So everyone says the kingdom of Israel and King David. King David was not the king of Israel. He was the king of Judah. Israel was defeated, and they merged into David's kingdom. I don't know if it was exactly during David's kingdom or when it exactly happened. I'd have to go back and look at some of my literature that I have. I have a lot of stuff from school. I have a degree in Jewish studies. Yay, Jewish studies. What's up, Dr. Middleman? Who is the head of the program? Check it out, City College in New York. Go Beavers. So that's one thing, and I found that out through an interesting story. You're going to be like, whoa, super duper quiz guy. So there are redundancies in the Torah, in the Bible. Sometimes there are two of the same stories told. The reason for that is during the compilation, when the Bible was codified, or perhaps it was before the codification, they took stories from the kingdom of Israel and the kingdom of Judah, and they merged them together into one story. At times, they couldn't specifically do that, so they just included both stories. The reason being, memory was still fresh of the stories from the kingdom of Israel. Didn't know that, did you? Pretty crazy. Anyways, so the bottom line, I'm curious as to when the term Palestine was. I know when it was coined, but I also know that it fell out of use, and I'm wondering when it was brought back. Was it brought back as because of Christian literature? Was it brought back by, and this is interesting, was it brought back by the Germans in the Middle Ages? Because I didn't know this. I learned this when I was in college. There are most of the critical religious thought in Christianity was adopted in Germany. There were large theological schools, and the interesting thing, this is the thing that kind of gets lost, is they would always go, I don't know. Let's go find a rabbi, bring him over. The priests would, or the academics who were looking at the Bible. They would say, go get a rabbi, we'll ask him. And they would confer with rabbis in the Middle Ages about questions that they had about the Christian Bible. Crazy, right? Not everything is arrows and spears. So that's refreshing. That's good. A little bit of positivity. I am going to have another sip of coffee because I'm in need. Sorry. Give me one moment. All right, so we're going to go back to this concept of self-worth, and the concept of self-worth actually goes into what I'm working on in February. So I have to go on Kickstarter. I have to ask for money because we have the whole thing costs about $10,000 to go there, flight, the location where we're shooting, which is at the Sea Executive Suites. Go Sea Executive Suites, beautiful. If you have an opportunity to go to Tel Aviv, stay at the Sea Executive Suites. It's phenomenal. The people are amazing. You're treated like a prince or a princess. I prefer a princess sometimes. Who knows? And don't judge. So what I had to do was I have to, in order to generate the money for this, I've reached out to a couple of places. Some of them have been really gracious and said that the idea was a really phenomenal idea, but they weren't in the capacity that the companies that I asked for the help from able to do anything. So I need to go to a wider audience. So I've decided to go to Kickstarter. And what I'm going to do is, and this ties in, you'll see it when I read this. Excuse me, I hiccuped. Hi. So you'll see that this all ties in to the concept of Herzl's idea of self-worth. All right, so I'm just read it, right? All right. So this is the script basically for the Kickstarter video that I'm going to put up. I'm going to read it to you. Before I ask you, the viewer, for anything, I want to tell you a quick story. A story about a man. A story about his life's work and how my work and your participation in it will continue his vision 100 years after he first put pen to paper. I want to tell you about Theodor Herzl. Now, before Herzl wrote his seminal book that would go on to be used as the framework for what would become the State of Israel, he had a revelation brought to him by the angry, anti-Semitic shouts flying wildly through Paris in the mid-1890s. This revelation caused him to see something in himself, something that normally was just a passing afterthought in his 19th century European life. Herzl, for the first time, fully recognized himself as a Jew, as a part of a group who, for as long as anyone could remember, were vilified, oppressed, and derided by European society and law. But from this, he also saw for the first time the Jewish individual, an empowered Jew who was capable of shaping their own destiny, an empowered Jew who was capable of being greater than the generations that had come before him. For this, Herzl wrote, and his writings, from this, Herzl wrote, and his writings, along with the writings of an entirely new literary class of Jews, went on to inspire thousands to empower themselves. It inspired them to embrace the mantle of Jew and to wear it proudly. Long term, what has been the result of this? In a sentence, the State of Israel. Above all, Herzl wanted the Jew to have standing in the world that surrounded them. Sadly, though, even after his dream of a state became a reality in 1948, the world still had difficulty seeing value in the Jew, much less a Jewish state. We're going to change that. I have gathered some of the best and brightest that Israel has to offer and gotten them to agree to be interviewed by myself. I'm going to show you an Israel that is rarely talked about. I'm going to show you Israel through its people. Now, who are these people? Well, one of the people that I have is a woman who became the youngest member of parliament. I have another woman who uses her art studio to educate her community. I also have a former general who left his career to take care of the special needs members of I got that wrong. Holy cow. I also have a former general who left his career to take care of his son who has special needs, and then went on to helm an organization that advocates and cares for the special needs community in Israel. I even have a ballerina, and I do. Bottom line, this is an amazing group of people, all of whom are willing to share who they are with the world. Help me bring their stories to you. Help me show the world that Israel is a country filled with creative and compassionate people who want to make the world a better place. We are walking in the footsteps of Herzl, and they're pretty big shoes to fill. Will you walk with me? What did you think? All right, so that is my script for my Kickstarter video. That is also basically, in a nutshell, why I'm doing what I'm doing. And I mean, it basically outlines everything that my entire reason for doing not only the show, but the interviews. And I want to elevate the Jewish people. And it's weird because as I've been reading this book, The Jewish State, I really, really do feel as if I'm walking in the footsteps of Herzl. And I got to tell you, it's pretty damn terrifying. It is. I mean, there is a place in Jerusalem. Okay. So Jerusalem's been Jerusalem for, thousands of years. Everything's pretty much been named. You don't rename things in Jerusalem unless you build something new, like a new building. So they took a mountain and named it Mount Herzl, Har Herzl. They got rid of the name that it had before. I don't even know what the name was. And they renamed it. That's how important he is. And I feel as if through what I'm doing, I'm picking up his mantle and carrying it. And it's pretty awesome. It's pretty great. It's actually fun. I enjoy it. I get to show what we have become. And that's interesting. It's interesting on a number of levels because one of the biggest concerns that Herzl had throughout his life, one of the biggest, well, actually not throughout his entire life. Maybe not from the perspective of being a Jew, but throughout his life, he always wanted to be taken seriously. He always wanted to be seen as, maybe, I don't know, would an expert be the right term? He wanted to be, so he mentions something in this book often, very often, and it's a term, and there's someone I can talk to about it, but he mentions the term honors, and that Jews are not able to have honors while they exist in late 19th century Europe. Now, to have honors, as I understand it right now, is to have a degree, and I don't know exactly what he's talking about, but the gist that I get is respect for being and this is important, and this is where we get back to the self-worth thing. Respect for being a productive member of European society. So I'm going to what I need to do, I got the book right here, and I have tons of Post-it notes in it. We're going to go and we're going to look at some of this. And we are going to, let me find it. All right. The natural confirmation, I'm reading from The Jewish State by Theodor Herzl. The natural confirmation of the land will rouse the ingenuity of our young architects whose ideas have not yet been cramped by routine. And even if the people do not grasp the whole import of the plan, they will at any rate feel at ease in their loose clusters. There will be light, attractive, healthy schools for children conducted on the most approved modern systems. There will be continuation schools for workmen, which will educate them in greater technical knowledge and enable them to become intimate with the working of machinery. There will be places of amusement for the proper, and this is important, for the proper conduct of which the Society of Jews will be responsible. Society of Jews is what eventually became the JC, the World Jewish Congress. That comes up a lot. And he continues on a couple of paragraphs later. Our unskilled laborers will first mutually erect these shelters, and then they will earn their houses as permanent possessions by means of their work. Not immediately, but after 3 years of good conduct. In this way, we shall secure energetic and able men, and these men will be practically trained for life by 3 years of labor under good discipline. So, we're talking about self-worth. We're talking about the individual as self-worth. Now, he didn't ascribe self-worth specifically to those in Jewish society, meaning those who were European Jews who did not produce. He touches on this a couple of times in the book, where he talks about, what does he talk about? He talks about, there's one paragraph and I couldn't find it. I was thumbing through it and I was trying to find it. And he was talking about those that do not want to do what needs to be done will not leave. And what's funny is he didn't talk about the lower classes when he was talking about this. Class becomes a very big issue in this, and one could, if they wanted to, very easily pull things out of his book that talk about class and ascribe him to being a socialist, and he is not. Because if I understand this right, there is self-worth for the individual no matter what. In socialism, according to him, there is not inherent self-worth in the individual unless that individual produces towards the larger aims of what needs to get done. We're going to talk about this in a second. I got to do a real quick shout out. I'm going to take another sip because my voice is getting a little bit scratchy. We're moving into fall, so the allergy season's coming. All right, so my first one that I'd like to talk about or give a shout out to is Neviot. Neviot flavored water, nature at its best taste. Neviot delivers you with a true combination of health and pleasure. Based on Neviot natural mineral water, one of its kind in Israel, it's enhanced with 5 P group vitamins. It's naturally sweetened. It is low in calories, only 35 to 40 calories per 8 fluid ounces. It is available in delicious, indulging flavors. I love that. Apple, right here. Awesome. Peach and grape. If you're in Israel, you should be drinking Neviot. For more information, check out their website at www.neviotglobal.com/en/home. That is www.neviotglobal.com/en/home. You can also, in this exact bottle, get this when you get off the plane in arrivals. And it's the first thing I do when I get off the plane. I get it for not just myself, but anyone I'm traveling with. It's amazing. If you want to get that water, head on over to our second sponsor, Makolet Online. Their main goal is to make Israeli groceries and Judaic products affordable and available to everyone in the USA and Canada. Their online store carries items that are unavailable in most places in North America, things like tahini, Israeli chocolates, frozen borekas, and the Neviot water that we are drinking here today. At Makolet Online, you will find your favorite Israeli goods or simply enjoy brand new flavors. All of their products are kosher, and most are manufactured in Israel. They're also super duper quick. Every time I order stuff, boom, it's at my house. If you want the taste of Israel delivered to your home, visit www.makoletonline.com and order today. For an added bonus, if you use the code, 12 cities in Israel. Thank you, Makolet Online. All one word, no spaces, the number 12 cities in Israel. You will receive 15% off of your entire purchase. So again, visit www.makoletonline.com makoletonline.com. That's www.makoletonline, and order today. So thank you guys. So we're talking about self-worth. We're talking about the self-worth of the Jew as it applies to Herzl's definition. So I'm now this is important. Herzl's not saying that Jews who don't produce don't have any self-worth. He's saying in terms of developing the state of Israel, what would become the state of Israel, he just had the state, the Jewish state. He didn't have a name for it that I know of. What he's saying is that those individuals, we don't have a need for you. It's exclusionary, meaning if you want to be a part of the state, you have to produce to be a part of the state. And what that means, produce doesn't mean like you got to build spacely sprockets or sprockets in this quota or whatever. What it means is if there are needs, then they need to be fulfilled by members of the state. If there are needs, the able Jew needs to be a part of that. I actually have a passage that is pretty great where he talks about that. And give me a moment. Let me find it. All right. Nope, I already read that one. That's prophets. Boom, boom, boom. Almost there. Wait. Is that it? No. So yeah, basically what he needed is he wanted people who would be willing to work, people who would be willing, but it wasn't just that you were going to work and you were going to get nothing. You were going to work and you were going to be a part of this. Here it is. You were going to be a part of something greater. All right, we shall only work collectively when the immense difficulties of the task demand common action. We shall, whenever possible, scrupulously respect the rights of the individual. Private property, which is the economic basis of independence, shall be developed freely and be respected by us. So that's interesting, because what he's saying is we need you to work hard. We need you to do things to help us develop this state. He talks about sowing fields, developing roads and infrastructure. And the other thing that's really interesting about what he's talking about in self-worth is he talks about education. And as I mentioned in one of the passages, he talks about a modern education, but he doesn't just talk about a modern education for children, Yeladim, sometimes I think in Hebrew. So he doesn't just develop it for children. He's also advocating for follow-on education for adults. So one of the things that he talks about is if I think he talks about this in work halls, because one of the things that the state is supposed to do is in Herzl's mind is they're supposed to develop these sort of like guild halls, where the state can have a large pool of skilled and unskilled workers. So let's say you have skilled workers, but that skill is not needed. He advocates that the state retrain individuals in these what he calls new technologies, the power of water and what steam is doing, And it's fascinating to see it through that lens. Now, what's cool about that is looking at what I'm doing, and it's where I get that footsteps of Herzl thing, because I'm speaking to some people who have done that. Like, all right, and this is going to sound like a ridiculous example, but it's not. It really isn't. So I have a friend. She's a ballerina. She's a dancer, and she's amazing. She's just fabulous. She's coming on the show. She'll be one of my guests. Now, she is originally from the United States, made Aliyah, and when I met her, she was dancing for a dance company in Beersheba in southern Israel. So, what that means, in line with what Herzl was talking about, is taking the Jew who has something beneficial for the state and fostering that. So, we have the law of return. And what that does is, so this person, she was able to get a stipend, something for housing and all kinds of stuff. And what does that do? It lifts up the state. It lifts her up because she gets to be a part of something amazing. But it also brings your best and brightest to this place where you have an opportunity to excel. So right now what's going on in Israel is they're talking about this big high-tech revolution that's going on, and that all of these new companies are being done. Waze was invented. Get, the taxi app, that was invented in Israel. Waze, the what is it? It's the driving app. Is that right? Yeah. WhatsApp in its precursor form was an Israeli invention, from what I understand. If I'm wrong, please hit me out. Let me know. But all of these things are being developed in not just apps, but biotechnology, all kinds of stuff, all kinds of cool stuff, all of the things that Herzl wanted to happen. Whether he meant for, it happened because he's not a prophet. He just saw the capacity and capability of the Jewish spirit, the Jewish work ethic. He saw what was possible for the Jew in the future. What's also scary is he also saw what was in the future for the Jews in Europe. He laments in saying that what will it take for people to take action, because one of the groups, interestingly, and this is what I wanted to get to, he said there are 3 ways that we can fund this. There are 3 ways we can find money for this program. One of them is through large-scale banks and business. Another is through small to medium banks. And another is through subscription. Go to the individual Jews and ask them to give a couple of shekels to the coffers of what will become the Jewish state. And one of the things that he said he liked the last idea the most. No, it's not that he liked the last idea. He saw the last idea as being the most reasonable. He saw asking the large banks, and he was talking about banks owned by Jews. He was talking about businesses owned by Jews, individuals who had large accounts, large quantities of credit. And he said it is his feeling that they will have a problem with the Jewish state, that those, and this is actually evidenced by I wonder if and I don't know the timing of it. I wonder if he had already gone to the Lord Rothschild. Was it the Lord Rothschild or was it the French Rothschild? I think it was the French Rothschild, who was not a lord. But I think it was before he went to Rothschild. It may have been after. It doesn't matter. It's just interesting because he got shut down by the philanthropists, he calls them, of Europe, the Jewish philanthropists, and they got very upset with him, almost as if that he was taking a liberty by doing this on his own without going through what had become this fiscal European Sanhedrin. Whoa, that was such a heady one right there. Fiscal European Sanhedrin. But essentially, that's exactly what it was. It was a group of affluent Jews who felt that they were the direction, or they had a what was it? They had prominence in any ideas, in anything that was done for world Jewry, in quotes. But yeah, so he saw going to the banks as problematic because he knew that Jews of affluence in Europe were trying very hard to be not assimilated. I mean, he mentions assimilation quite often in the book. And for those of you who don't know, I'm going to take a sip real quick. Hold on. Assimilation is something that comes up often in a lot of Jewish literature in one way or another. The concept of the so the concept of the Jew breeding himself or herself out of the Jewish sphere, marrying into and I'm not joking around about my wording. That's specifically it. It has been a latent concern within the Jewish community for I don't know how long. It goes back as far as Jewish memory can remember. And that is assimilation. But it's taken on different forms. And there are different levels of it, and he deals with it in the book. And he finds those where assimilation is important. And I say on different levels because some of the levels that he talks about are societal assimilation, meaning discarding the trappings, ornamentation, and what do you call it? And not behaviors, but things that Jews do, observing the Sabbath, and just trying to be everything short of Christian in a Christian society. And he has contempt for that. You can tell in his writing that he has contempt for that. If you are Jewish, you are Jewish. I think a lot of that comes, of course, from his history. He dealt with a lot of anti-Semitism when he was in college. Actually, it's an interesting story. And I know I'm wandering off the subject, but one of the fraternities that he joined in order to elevate himself, in order to socially assimilate, he wound up going, and I think it was showing this virulent anti-Semite was in was it an opera or writings? I know it had something to do with Wagner. I'm going to get more details and give them to you because I'm pretty much crapping this up. Basically what happened is there was a guy who was an anti-Semite who was big in media, either in music or in literature, and members of Herzl's fraternity that he belonged to at an event denigrated into really anti-Semitic behavior. He wasn't there at that time, but when he found out, became very upset, very offended, and eventually resigned because of it. So, and what was troubling for him is these were individuals that he considered not just peers, but friends. These were people who, but it always goes back to, I have a Jewish friend. You know what I mean? That's how these friends that he had were. They were just, one could make excuses, youthful, endeavors and crap like that, but you are what you do. So, he that left a stain on not only his psyche, but his soul, his Jewish soul. And this was where the seed was developed. And then in Paris during the Dreyfus affair, when a member of the general staff, a captain, who was a Jew, was accused of treason, spying. The shouts were not traitor, but Jew. Not death to the traitor, death to the Jew. And that eventually wound up being death to the Jews, which was screamed in the streets. And that is when he locked himself in his room and wrote this pamphlet. So, but part of that, the Jew who has worth comes from a lot of this history, because he saw individuals who were Jewish who stuck up for these people, these non-Jews who were being incredibly anti-Semitic. He even goes on to suggest, and he never really clarifies, and he's I gotta say, he's kind of a classy guy. He takes the high road because he doesn't point them out. He doesn't bring up their name. He just says specific Jews who wish to assimilate have taken a turn towards anti-Semitism and done some pretty horrific things, or said some pretty horrific things. But bottom line, I'm going to have to wrap this up because we are coming up on the hour. I told you we had a lot to unpack in this one. This one was fun. This one had a little bit of history. It had a little bit of what's going on now. It gives you insight into where the development of the state comes from. I'm going to actually, one of the things I want to do is I want to hit this topic a couple of times, and I want to hit it a couple of times because I want to hit it from different angles. And what that topic is Zionism. And there are very differing opinions on what Zionism is. And I'm trying to take it I'm exploring it. I'm exploring Zionism. We're trying to crack the nut on that one and get to the real meat of what exactly Zionism was in the beginning. So to give kind of an understanding of what we're trying to do, it would be like trying, everyone right now, we're in a constitutional crisis in the United States. So, but when you look at the Constitution, and this isn't a left or right thing, this is a purely academic exercise. When you look at the Constitution, it's important to understand that it's a document that was meant to move forward. Zionism, I feel, in my academic opinion, feel as if Zionism is something that moves forward. What's interesting is, and I'm going to wrap this up after I mention this, is that one of the things that they talk about, one of the things that Herzl talks about specifically is the organization of housing. and how housing will be set up in a specific way. And he's not doing it in an authoritarian or in an authoritative manner. He's doing it in a way to tell people, hey, I think this is a good idea. Why don't we try to set it up this way? And this is based on, he's had conversations with some of the greatest minds of the late 19th century because he was there. They were all in Paris, city planners, all that kind of stuff. And what's funny is the stuff that he writes about how he wanted to have these things mapped out. You can see when you go to some of the planned cities in Israel, like when you go to, you can't really see it in Tel Aviv and Jerusalem because they kind of just exploded, but I mean, Tel Aviv just blossomed out, and Jerusalem was just worked around. But when you get to some of these other cities like Netanya, let me see, like Beersheba, Eilat, where there really wasn't anything there, you can see the city planning that Herzl had in his mind's eye. So it's pretty great. I have so much more I could talk about, and we're going to talk about a lot more in the upcoming episodes. But I just wanted to talk about that topic, the self-worth, Herzl's concepts on self-worth and the Jew. So I hope you enjoyed that. And I'm going to wrap it up. So I want to wrap it up by telling you again about, I know, beating a dead horse. I want to tell you again about February. So this coming February, this show, the 12 Cities in Israel podcast, will be in Tel Aviv at the Sea Executive Suites to do interviews with a number of people from across Israeli society. We have a number of wonderful people confirmed as guests, including Doron Almog from Ale, Rivka Karmi, the former president of Ben-Gurion University, MK Stav Shafir, Daniel Seaman, Yishai Fleischer, Tomer Yosef, DJ Aviel Brandt, Corey Gil Schuster from an Israeli Ask a Palestinian project, Sarah Tuttle Singer, and Shoshana Keats Jaskell, both from the Times of Israel, and many others. We even have, as I said, a professional ballerina. In total, we will be interviewing 22 to 24 people who represent some of the best of Israel creatively, professionally, and academically. This project has the very real potential to have a profound impact outside of Israel on a number of different spectrums, from the political to the social, meaning that this could be the catalyst to the world seeing Israel more positively. To be a part of this and to help us, please visit our website, www.12citiesinisrael.com, and make a donation through PayPal toward helping us fund our trip. In total, it will cost around $10,000, but we are currently in need of about half of that. So this remaining $5,000 will go towards paying for airfare, the space to film at the Sea Executive Suites, and for the remainder of the equipment that we need. I am not taking any pay for this. So if you'd like to help, please, again, visit our website, www.12citiesinisrael.com, and hit the PayPal button. What I'm doing is, as far as Ale and who is it? Schneider Children's Hospitals, I am no longer doing a verbal. Now I'm going to do a big thing at the end of our YouTube episodes in the credits for that. So check that out. Go over to our website and you can see about that. And that's pretty much it. All right. So thank you so much for joining us for the 12 Cities in Israel podcast. Don't forget to subscribe to our feed and become a part of the 12 Cities in Israel community. You can find our podcast on SoundCloud, iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, TuneIn, and Spotify. And we'll be bringing you a brand new podcast every week. So keep your eyes out for that. Also, to help support this podcast, you can visit our Patreon page and become a regular donor. You can find that page at www.patreon.com/12 cities in Israel. That is the number 12 cities in Israel. Also, please visit our YouTube channel where you can see a video version of this podcast plus other videos that we have produced, including our full-length travel episode on the city of Beersheba in southern Israel. While you're there, please don't forget to hit the subscribe button and the notification bell. You can also check us out at our website, www.12citiesinisrael.com, on our Facebook page, and on Instagram, where every day we post a brand new picture from our Israel travels. All right, guys, that's it. Toda rabba, להתראות, ויאללה ביי.
כציפור הדועה בענן, לו הייתי כציפור הדועה בענן, לפרוס הכנפיים על הארץ ועל מים, ומקצה השמיים אביך לכאן, לפרוס לך כנפיים על הארץ ועל מים, ומקצה השמיים אביך לכאן.